Should superstar level players be expected to take pay cuts to help their teams field a roster that will contend? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Obviously, this is going to be a bit about LeBron James and his decision with the Lakers, but this is also a bigger conversation about superstars in general and their role in the NBA. Before we get to that, though, we need to give a shout out to Gregg Popovich, who today it was announced he will no longer be the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. He will instead be transitioning full-time to the role of team president. Obviously, not necessarily on his own terms here. Gregg Popovich has dealt with some health issues recently, and congrats to Pop on an incredible coaching career. This is probably the right decision for the franchise, the right decision for Gregg Popovich to not have to go on the road with the team constantly, take off some of that strain, and he can instead still be very involved in the role of team president, and Mitch Johnson will take over full-time as the new Spurs head coach. So Gregg Popovich's coaching career, one of the all-time greats in the NBA, comes to a close. All right, so this was from my buddy Jovan Buha of The Athletic, who said that LeBron James with the Lakers, he is not expected to consider the kind of pay cut that was in play around this time a year ago. Last summer, he took a discount of approximately $2.7 million to help the Lakers stay under the second apron. Now, LeBron was also rumored to be willing to take a much bigger pay cut that would allow the Lakers to get DeMar DeRozan, James Harden, Klay Thompson, someone like that. Jonas Valanciunas was reportedly also on LeBron's list of players he was willing to take a pay cut for, though I've heard that he was not willing to take as much of a pay cut to get Jonas, and it wasn't enough for them to actually outbid the Washington Wizards, who signed him at the time. He's since been traded to the Kings. I've also had it characterized to me that LeBron's willingness to take less on his last contract was essentially a fool's errand, that Rob Pelinka, while he was given that flexibility, was never going to get Klay Thompson, DeMar DeRozan, James Harden, any of those types of players for the $13 million that a full mid-level exception would have opened up from LeBron taking less. But nonetheless, the thought was that perhaps LeBron would be willing to take less again this year. Obviously now pushback on that. Should that be the expectation, though? I think that's really the question here, because I'm seeing a lot of fans respond negatively towards LeBron James, and we see this happen periodically in sports, where we expect the star-level players to take a discount in order to help their clubs. And I think there's a few problems with that. First and foremost, I think we have to remember that the true superstar-level players, they're actually already taking discounts just by signing a max contract. So, for example, we look at LeBron James. I mean, what is he? At worst, he's been, what, a top 15 player, right, over the course of the season. Yes, he's 40 years old, but a top 15 player at worst over the course of the season, in my opinion. 24 points, 8.2 assists, 7.8 rebounds. I mean, he's putting up numbers, which is insane. 40 years old, putting up numbers right in line with his career averages, 38% from three. That's actually an improvement compared to seasons past, 51% from the field. He's been great, right? He had a phenomenal season, played 70 games, unbelievable stuff from LeBron James at his age. Obviously, disappointment come playoff time, but nonetheless, he's putting up insane numbers. But we have to remember, what would LeBron get in a true open market? No salary cap. What's LeBron getting? Certainly a lot more than the $50 million, $52 million that he can pick up on a player option for next year. In a free market, he's going to get a lot more money than that. So what's happened is, under the new collective bargaining agreement and under the CBA in general, superstars are one of the true values out there on the market, because in basketball, they affect winning at a rate that simply isn't the same as star level players in a lot of other sports. There's only 5 players on the floor in the NBA. Superstars make a big, big difference. So oftentimes they're going to return more bang for your buck than just what their contract would suggest. They're actually giving you already a discount playing on a max level contract. It is an artificially created economy that restricts the earning power of these superstar level players. It's lower than what it would have been. And I think that has to be taken into account whenever we look at situations like these. And again, a lot of people mad at LeBron, mad at the situation, mad that the Lakers went out early. But should stars in general be asked to do this? And here's the problem. Here's the problem when this happens, is that star level players, if they get asked to do this, what happens is there is a domino effect on their peers, that because the example gets set, people say, well, if this player did it, why won't you do it, right? LeBron, let's say LeBron takes a discount, for the Lakers. You know what's going to happen? The next star to negotiate with their team is going to be told, well, LeBron took less because he really wants to win. If you want to prove that you want to win, you need to do this too. And that's a situation that LeBron James doesn't want to see other players around the NBA put into. We also have to remember that the rules themselves are created by ownership and the players combined, right? That's what the collective bargaining agreement is. It is collective. It's the group that agrees to these rules. So when ownership comes to a player and they say, you know what? And by the way, in these negotiations, ownership is constantly doing everything they can to push down the amount of money that they can pay players. Now, remember, there's always a 50% split in terms of basketball-related income, and so that's something that matters. Players will always get 50% of that, no matter what happens, no matter what the contracts say, they're going to get 50%, and the rest of it gets held in escrow in order to make sure. And players get about 90% of it over the course of the season. The rest gets held in escrow when we look at their contracts before they make sure that they indeed got about 50% of the basketball-related income split, and then the NBA makes it up at the end of the season. But should players be put in that situation when it's owners that are constantly trying to, under new CBA negotiations, drive down the amount of money that players can get paid? That's their side of it. Players are pushing the other way, right? As expected. But owners fight to have these rules put in place, fight to have the amount of money that a player can earn on their contract very restricted, artificially restricted below what it would be in a free market environment. And then they say, oh, sorry, guess we can't give you more money. Oh, if you want to win, well, you're going to have to take a pay cut. That's on you. That's on you. When ownership's been pushing to drive down these salaries as much as they possibly can. Now, it's in their best interest to do so. I'm not faulting them for doing that. But I think we have to remember what the overall picture looks like. Because when a player isn't willing to take less money, it oftentimes reflects negatively on them in the public. We turn and we look at that player and we say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you be like Tom Brady? Why can't you take less money to help your team? That would help the fans of that team because we want to see that team win. You're being selfish because you're not taking less money. Instead, we don't look at ownership and say, why did you push so hard to try and control salaries? Why did you make it so you have a system that prevents you from spending more money? Why did you push so hard for that? Yes, there's restrictions in place that stop teams from constructing competitive rosters, but those restrictions are fought for at the ownership level. So they're creating the rules and then saying, oh, sorry, I can't give you more money. And if you want to actually contend, if you want to add pieces to your roster, you're going to have to take less. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Yeah, you did. You made the rules. NBA franchises have been insanely profitable. Insanely. You look at what owners have made over the years on their franchises, and people may say, like Mark Cuban may say, well, I lost like $200 million over the years. Yeah, but what happened to your franchise valuation? It went through the roof. Nobody wants to lose money. Of course not. And I'm not faulting owners for pushing to drive down salaries as much as they can, for fighting to try to make their businesses as profitable as they can. It's what any business owner does. But to play both sides of that and be able to say, oh, well, you know what? We just fought for all these restrictions to be put in place. And because we won, I guess we can't pay more money. So that means it's going to be on you, Superstar X, if you want to actually contend for a championship. And if you aren't willing to take less, it's going to reflect poorly on you, not us. That's a pretty sweet position to be in if you are an NBA owner, in addition to, the insanely skyrocketing values of these franchises that come in place. So I think it's important to keep that perspective before everybody gets mad at a player, whether it's LeBron James or anybody else, for not taking less. I think it's important to remember the context that most of these true stars are already taking a significant discount. What LeBron James, what Luka, what, say, Wemby, what Giannis, any of the stars in the NBA, what they bring in terms of revenue, in terms of butts in seats, eyeballs on the product, it far outpaces what they get on their salaries. Having a true star on your roster is a financial windfall for NBA teams. And then it gets put on the player to take even less, even more of a discount in order to build out a roster. And that, to me, just seems like an unfair situation. Would it be great if both sides could budge, if both sides could give a little bit somehow and open up flexibility for different teams? Absolutely. But I think when we take this and we immediately put it on the player themselves and characterize them as selfish, we're not really looking at the full picture and what the reality of the NBA economy actually is. But everybody, give me your thoughts in the comments down below. A battle of millionaires versus billionaires, I suppose, in this situation. And yet fans tend to side with the ownership in this case because they're fans of the team themselves. But should superstars be willing to take less or be expected to take less in order to field a more competitive roster? Or does the responsibility simply fall upon the front office to play within the rules that ownership and the players have collectively created? Give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Where should blame be placed in situations like these? Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.